I don't know where to go. Let me stop. Now, as y'all might have been able to tell, I may or may not be part of the YuYu Hakusho Defense Force. I sometimes have to watch myself because I mess with this series so heavily, and it's been a part of my life so long that I operate under the assumption that everyone by default just knows that this belongs on Anime Mount Rushmore with the rest of the greats. But then I have to remind myself that I'm approaching my mid-30s. I'm Unc out here, and for every boomer out here I have hitting the Charleston right along with me when they hear Smile Bomb, there's a whole army of Gen Z and below who are looking at this series thinking that instead of worrying about YuYu Hakushos, you need to be thinking about how YuYu can get some bitches. Slander from the ignorant YNs in the chat aside though, hear me when I tell you that if you aren't up on the series, do yourself a solid and get familiar. To the degree that it's in the collective consciousness, lots of folks know YuYu Hakusho because of the Dark Tournament saga, and there's absolutely a reason why that arc is talked about as much as it is. But friends, please don't get it twisted. YuYu Hakusho has way more going on than some OD fights, though it does have plenty of that. And what really makes this show live in my heart, I find, is a combination of things. The soundtrack, and I'm talking opening, ending, and instrumental themes used throughout the runtime are all iconic top to bottom. The artwork is masterful, with memorable monster designs, saturated colors with beautiful backgrounds, and the entire cast is insanely dripped out. Like when Togashi's in his bag in this series, these fits are standing toe-to-toe with Bulma, Krillin, and a few of the other heavy hitters in the Dragon Ball cast, and y'all already know I'm not giving those kind of accolades lightly. But the real magic of YuYu Hakusho is in the characters, and I'm going to elaborate on that because it's true on a couple of levels. If y'all have had any exposure to that madman Togashi's other work, stuff like Hunter x Hunter, then you know that buddy is an expert in subterfuge. He has a way of catfishing the audience, kind of lulling you into a sense of comfort with characters that seem one way on the surface, and then he whips it out and you realize this ain't that kind of party at all. Take the homie Urameshi, for example. Yusuke is the hero of our story, and on the surface appears to be your prototypical delinquent character. But as more situations are introduced and we learn more about him, we start to realize the genuine surprising amount of depth that he's hiding in those immaculately slick back locks of his. Yusuke's got a massive case of shit life syndrome that isn't just a consequence of his innate teenage punk assness. Homie's mom is a mess, and while the anime doesn't exactly lay all of his cards on the table about the exact dynamic between Yusuke and Ma Dukes, from the brief interactions in just the beginning episodes, we see that she seems to be nice and acquainted with Jack Daniels, and either because of this or a consequence thereof is largely physically and emotionally neglectful towards Yusuke, leading him in his young middle school years to being functionally self-sufficient with an emotionally impenetrable wall up that only seems to come down for his girl Keiko, the only real safe space he has in his life, who also holds him accountable for the BS he tends to be on most of the time. And even Yusuke's mom, whom it would be easy to write off as a stereotypical garbage anime mom who serves as nothing more than a plot device for the growth of our main character, ends up spear gunning that label off as well once things start to unfold, and we see that she absolutely does give a crap about her son, but she's too caught up in her own copes and numbing the pain to be the mom that she needs to be in the house. All this kind of sidestepping of expectations can be found in the whole cast, villains and heroes alike, and it's just one of the many things that make this show so sick. But the other thing I'd be remiss if I didn't mention when it comes to the characters is just how damn good the dub of YuYu Hakusho is. I'll be real with you. In the past, I've tried to watch YuYu Hakusho subtitled, but I just couldn't do it. And it's not because of my American public school education. After being exposed to the English dub for this many years, I've gotten spoiled. Let's take a moment to glaze this man Justin Cook for a second. Not just for what should be an Emmy award-winning performance as Yusuke Urameshi, but for being the lead director on the entirety of the YuYu Hakusho's voice acting and giving what's in my mind a top 5, if not just top 1 itself, English dub anime experience that has proven itself to be timeless. I genuinely cannot see these characters anymore and not think of their English voice performances. Chris Sabat's Surfer with extra chromosomes take on Kuwabara is top notch. My man Android 17, aka Chuck Huber as Hiei, manages to make every line coming out of that 4-foot-tall animal's mouth as venomous as it is cool. And don't even get me started on the rest of the squad. That's enough Ryan Kuwabara's Spirit Sword for now. Let me give y'all a quick taste of the first episode of the series so you can see just why it's worth getting into. And if y'all are really messing with the YuYu Hakusho coverage, subscribe, like, and share to let me know if this is something I should be doing more of. So after we get done having our ears blessed by Smile Bomb, the show immediately starts off with a bang, pun slightly intended. Instead of 20 to 30 minutes of slow-ass exposition and setup, YuYu Hakusho was an early adopter of the ADH theory of modern-day entertainment, and within the first 3 minutes of the show, just straight up deletes the main character. I need to do more of my homework, but this has to be one of the earliest appearances of Truck Kun, right? Buddy out here putting up King Von numbers in the isekai world, but our man's Yusuke Urameshi doesn't get spirited away to some far fantasy land to play White Knight for a busty elf love interest. Buddy's reward for saving a small child is to watch his mangled corpse get begrudgingly spatulated off the street by a chronically tired and pissed off EMS team while he spends the remainder of the episode trying to figure out just where it all went wrong. Yusuke knew his day started out food bar when he found himself at school. That was his first mistake. It didn't take long for the entirety of the school population to start getting on his nerves, so he went to his favorite place in the school, taking his rightful place on the anime protagonist rooftop section while he hit a Euro squat and contemplated if he could escape from the top without exploding both his knees like Kyle in that South Park episode. As he was in his meditative trance, he was joined by Keiko, his childhood friend who was one of two, maybe three people that has Yusuke's back in any real way and is able to see past his shoddy macho defense mechanisms at the scared boy lying underneath, just looking for a safe place to be. As Keiko's putting him in check for skipping class yet again, Yusuke decides that there is more important conversation that needs to be had, checking to see exactly how them Calvin Kleins are sitting in that back seat before getting the entirety of his taste buds slapped out of his mouth for his transgressions. Keiko really do got an arm on her. She should be in one of those Scandinavian slap boxing competitions Mort's critical at everybody watching a couple years back. After collecting the rest of his teeth in his pocket and meeting his sexual harassment quota for the day, Yusuke bounced and got ready to make his way off school grounds. Real quick, I gotta tell y'all something that messed me up bad, because as Yusuke is making his way out, two of Keiko's girlfriends come in talking about some wild BS rumors they heard about Yusuke being a literal serial killer and going to baby stomping parties on Epstein Island for fun. As Keiko attempts to tell them what a load of bull this is, Son Gohan's voice comes straight out of this girl's mouth, and I started looking in the background for Piccolo, trying to figure out why he let his son stray this far from his own series.
Yeah, and if you cross him, he'll whistle for 2,000 bad guys with guns!
And that's something we're gonna notice big time with this whole thing. This era was when that core Funimation team had the game on lock. Yusuke is voiced by Big Body Raditz, Kuwabara is Vegeta, Genkai was the OG Frieza voice, that fella Hiei body doubled as Android 17. It's just so cool being able to connect the body of work this crew was able to put on during this time, but this dub right here was special. Justin Cook put his whole entire foot into the voice direction of this dub, and that's going to be a point I continue to make. But back to the show though, because as Yusuke was making his way out of school, he came up on two losers who lied on his name, telling potential bullies that he was Urameshi's cousin to avoid the old iota. When loser 2 tells him that that probably wasn't the best move, this fella says Yusuke is so mentally challenged, he probably thinks it's true himself, and that's when the man in the hour just so happens to be rolling up behind him. Out of principle and love for the game, Yusuke readied his fist to send this bozo back into the Dragon Ball continuity when his biggest op in the school shows up. Grown ass man, fully licensed teacher, pulls up and starts firing off level 99 assumptions when he sees the water on the ground and Yusuke about to butter this kid's biscuit. And this fella is hell out of pocket whenever he has something to say, not just chastising Yusuke's behavior, but making sure that he knows that the kid was an absolute waste of sperm and his mom's a hoe. Yusuke, knowing that if he stays in this place any longer, he's going to completely crash out, walks off and prepares to hop the fence out of school when he's stopped by yet another school staff member. This time it's Mr. Takanaka. And despite the fact that he comes off as just another annoying ass adult at first, when further observed, it's easy to see that Big Fella's the only adult and really only other person outside of Keiko that sees Yusuke as a person and the potential he has as a human being. Big Daddy T scoops up Urameshi by his ear to bring his trifling ass back to the building for a talk, informing him he's been scouting his ass on that loudspeaker all morning. That's when Yusuke hops into his Three Stooges bag and reveals he's being held onto by a fake ear, tells Takanaka that the speaker must not be that loud, and bounces. Bro, you know how much of a professional school skipper you gotta be to keep a fake ear on you like this? Young boy Yusuke got this down to a science. Yusuke leaves school and decides he's gonna head home and hop on the Famicom for a little bit. When he gets to the house, Ma Dukes is just chilling in the living room in her PJs with a cigarette lit, peeping out the window with a 1,000-yard stare. Not gonna lie, Yusuke's the homie, but I'd be lying if I said his mom wasn't kinda, you know what I'm saying. Look, all I'm saying is don't let me have to be the dad that stepped up. Jokes aside though, this brief interaction between Yusuke and his mom says so much without having to really say anything at all. Just from this brief window into Yusuke's life, we learn so much, and it begins to become a lot easier to understand why Yusuke is the way that he is. Atsuko, the mom of the hour, for whatever reason, is just straight up emotionally and seemingly even physically unavailable. And from the way Yusuke reacts, this is not anything new. So if we start to go back in time a little bit and think about what having an alcohol-fueled, emotionally neglectful mother does to a kid coming up, Yusuke's chip on his shoulder starts to become a lot more than just a spoiled punk-ass teen too big for his britches. Little Urameshi probably had to grow up largely fending for himself, needing to become mad independent at an early age. He learned real quick that you can't depend on any of these adults out here to take care of you the way they say they are, so you gotta be strong and figure it out fast. And as the series goes on, a big part of Yu Yu Hakusho becomes our MC learning to break past these internal walls he has built up as a young ningen so he can grow into the young, healthy man he needs to be. And this is also why I think Yusuke resonates so strongly with so many of us. If you're a kid coming up in less than ideal circumstances, maybe with parents or guardians who kind of leaned in the Atsuko direction themselves, then seeing a main character with a troubled life trying to figure it out and overcome its circumstances was a lot more grounded and relatable than many stories you were probably exposed to as a kid or teen, especially in anime. Now there's more to episode 1, but that's where I'm calling it. Homies, if you enjoyed the Yu Yu Hakusho commentary and recap, please let me know by giving this channel and the video some love by liking, sharing, and subscribing, so I know I need to get back into the lab and continue working to cook something up for the culture. Appreciate y'all more than I can tell you. Be easy, and catch you again in the next one.